Good morning and welcome to episode 28 of Wake Up West Orange. As we mentioned on Sunday and acknowledged our veterans, today is Veterans Day, but today is also National Origami Day, and we have a specialist. We flew him in from Japan. No, just kidding, but one of our members been here for many years. Carlos Ahrens is here, and so Carlos, before we get into the origami part, share with our members and any other viewers about you and Leanne and your family and how long you've been at West Orange.
Yeah, we've been at West Orange since 2003. We were originally we got married a long time ago, but we were going to church here in Orlando at Concord Street, and then we moved up to Atlanta. We lived there for 3 years. Mm-hmm. We went to Burnt Hickory Church of Christ, and then when we came back, she had told us, and it was actually Matt Messier was the one who kind of pulled us towards this direction, because Matt was an old Concord Street also person, but he said, yeah, West Orange, it's great. So I don't know what he was talking about. But anyway, yeah. So we started back here in 2003, and we've been here ever since, and we love it.
Yeah, and so your kids have grown up here, and you guys have taught classes in Vacation Bible School. Yeah. So for those that do not know about West Orange, we always have something big in the atrium, and the last VBS we had here was a big rocket, and this is the mastermind behind that. So, but Carlos has a lot of creative juices and things in his mind to make, and so one of those is origami. So.
Yeah, so origami, it's basically the art of paper folding, and I think if you have a little square piece of paper, you can pretty much do anything with it. And this is just an example of some of the things that we made in the past. I started doing these during the church service, because
during the sermon
before Brian, this was a long time ago, but and then we teach fourth graders and fifth graders. So we used to play a little game where I'd make a few of these and I'd hide them in the church, areas, and then before class they'd go out and they'd pick up the little communion cups, and then they'd find them like, oh, I found a dragon, oh, I found a bunny rabbit, and then also sometimes during the church or during the Bible class we'd make them too. But there's a couple here that are special, that I wanted to show you. I taught my daughter when she was very, very young, like 7, 8, 9 years old, something like that. And I taught her a little bit how to make origami, and she went away and she came back, and then she said, here, Dad, I made this for you. And this is an origami from my daughter when she was about 8 years old. It's all dusty and crumbly, but I still have this, and I cherish it.
Yep.
And on that same during that same time, she started really getting into making little paper things, and then she made me this little one, which is I don't know if you can see it here, but it's super tiny, and it's very small, and then I said, I bet you can't make one smaller than that. And then she made this one over here. And if she's watching this, I don't know if you can see it, but it's like, it doesn't even fit on your fingernail. So, there's all different sizes.
And that's those things where you do like questions.
It's the little flipping it open and the little things in there.
So it's in elementary. Used to could make one. I have no idea now how.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of different things that you can do, and there's rabbits, pigeons, birds, and this is another cool one here. This one my father actually taught me how to make this one, and it's using a couple of the folds that are just the standard folds, but in the end he cuts out the little end of it here, and then if you hold it like this, and then you can actually blow into it.
Oh!
And it becomes a little cat. So it's so you can use origami in a lot of different ways, but it's very cool. And then as far as size go, you don't really even need to use these are like 4x4 squares, it's a standard size. But if you have a big piece of paper, you can make something gigantic,
Look at that.
You can do a lot of different things with these, but
you could like serve a salad in that.
Yeah, you could. There's
or dip and chips.
There you go. Yeah, that's not a bad idea, actually.
Well, if you open a restaurant, it can be like origami place settings, and then you eat. I don't know. There you go.
They told me that these Wake Up West Orange.
Well, it's an idea.
We're all revolved around food for some reason.
Sometimes
it
happens. Yeah.
So I guess
had breakfast yet.
You were wanting donuts this morning.
Yeah. Well, I saw the episode with the donuts, and I'm like, hey, does everybody get donuts?
Yeah.
But
what could you do? Could you origami a donut? Because that. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yep. No, but we have a lot of fun with it, and the kids have fun with it too. And if you ever want to just do something that's that's simple, easy, inexpensive, you could spend a lot of time on folding paper and turning it into something special.
Yeah. Well, what we one of the things we sometimes talk about on here, we always try to think of like spiritual connections and things like that. So, it's neat to think about the fact. So you got a piece of paper here, right? Just a plain piece of paper, and how you or whoever's doing it with your hands, you're able to craft that into a vision of something unique, something special, something different. So how does your mind think about that with God and us?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. My wife, Leanne, she always talks about gifts, and the gifts that we're given, and just going back to my origins in the church. I went to a Catholic Jesuit high school run by Jesuit priests, and we used to have mass every morning, and we were basically forced to go. We didn't have a choice. So,
right.
So it was every morning we had mass, and then every afternoon we had mass, and they'd give you the host and everything, and they wipe the cup. So it was the whole thing. And after we left there, I grew up. My parents were Catholics, so we'd go to church, but not regularly, and. So it wasn't a really big spiritual thing that I had going on other than the school where I was at from 7th grade through 12th grade. So after I graduated high school, I said, no more of this, so I really kind of pulled away from religion and that whole thing, because it was just kind of crammed into me for so many years. But it wasn't until I met my wife, Leanne, when I met her back in 1989, she went to church and she went to Concord Street, and then she made me go, and I went with her. It wasn't a bad thing,
I
but
can see that.
but and I was, it was a little off-putting because they treat visitors a little bit like, oh, you're a visitor, let me put a sticker on you,
Right.
So now you're marked, everybody sees, oh, there's a visitor, let's go say hi to them,
Yeah.
And I thought it was just kind of weird and fake, and I didn't really get into it, but it was really, and I know, Tim, we haven't talked about this, but one of the things that really brought me closer to God and closer to the fellowship in the church was working with Tim, and when Tim was here, he was in charge of the kids and the youth groups and really that VBS. And I had already worked on a couple of VBSs before, Concord Street, but when Tim was here, he was like, yeah, we're going to do a VBS. We're going to really go all out. And I was like, yeah, I can do that, and just like you said, just working with your hands and then fellowshipping with other people and the unity that the VBSs bring, where everybody just comes together, everybody pitches in their own piece of the pie, and it's amazing what comes out of it. The kids get a really great, a great time for that week that we're together, but I think it's also the adults, the adults, they find so much time to work together that they didn't do before. So yeah, and after that, I kind of, I don't want to say I became a believer, but that really strengthened me, through the gifts that I have with making things. I was able to not only use those talents, but also, communicate with other people in the church and make things happen. And it really makes that family a lot stronger. And I have a story about you too,
Oh boy.
There was this new guy here named Brian.
Yep.
And I remember I was making the ark. Remember the Noah's Ark?
I
And I remember you were walking by and you were like, so what are you making there? And I'm like, oh, don't worry about it. You're good. Oh, well, can I help? And I'm like, well, here, take this paintbrush, but don't mess anything up, And but I remember you remember that, right? The early days, But I think it's great. I think it's great. And like I said, like we were talking about, the folding of the paper, everybody comes into the world, pretty much the same, you're a blank piece of paper, but when God takes you and folds you and makes you into something, it's really something that you can do to use those talents and share them with everyone, you know, and there's all different colors, all different shapes and talents that are in there, and with all of us working together, you know.
Yeah, I think the church could even be, to that extent, the same thing, is that each of us is a pivotal part of what happens when that starts forming. Because, you know, if you left out a couple of folds, it doesn't turn out the way it's supposed to. So no matter if it's a big, you know, like this one I like it even better because there's a fold in here somewhere that if you didn't do it just right, it's going to come out looking like, you know, something else. And that's, I think that's everybody has their part, no matter whether it's noticed or unnoticed or whatever. So that's a beautiful part of church too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so not to get sentimental here, but another thing, thinking about God and this crafting things and things being special. So grab the one there that Christina made for you here. Okay. So how old was she when she made that?
She was probably 8 years old.
8 years old. So if you look at it now, and it's really neat, but you can tell. So how old is she now?
She's 24.
She's 24 years old. And if you look at this, I mean, you know, there's, you know, it's been bent a lot of ways in which it's not what we would call perfect. But if this was something that I made or someone else that was not your daughter, you know, you probably would have thrown it away. But she made that for her dad all those years ago. And to think about how God feels about what we, you know, sometimes we may think, well, what I'm offering God is not perfect, but we're his children. Yep. And so, you know, that you're always going to keep that.
It's perfect to me.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah, because it's your daughter.
Which is sort of the point.
Yep.
I like that.
Yeah. So, well, we, you know, it's amazing whether it's the ark or the rocket. You know, Angie and Christine, they end up, you know, keeping that. We keep it the whole summer, and they build the whole series around it. But the energy it brings, the anticipation. I mean, my kids, you know, getting in the rocket, wow, and how tall was that thing at our last BBS? Was it like?
It was like 25 feet, something like that. It went up. We didn't think it was going to clear the ceiling for a while.
That was an interesting day.
That was very close. That was very close. But
yeah. And then, you know, we have visitors that come in and they look at it and they're wowed, and so you know, you need those things, and it also just reminds me, and you're a high energy guy, that ministry can be fun, you know, and it doesn't all have to just be, you know, plain Jane, or, you know, sometimes we think of things as being boring or something, but you and Leanne both, you really bring a lot of just positive fun and energy to our church, and just you make things come alive and object lessons. But I did not know this about Carlos until Angie brought up that today was going to be National Origami Day, and you did that. I did not know this about you, so thank you for sharing this with us and just sharing your family as being a part of West Orange.
Yes.
Tim, you got any? Usually we let Angie wrap things.
Well, no, I was thinking the same thing. I appreciate Carlos for being such a great friend and a great example and a dad, and just a lot of different things about his life. Whether you realize it or not, you influence a lot of people in very positive ways. So don't stop. Don't try to figure out what you're doing. Just keep doing it.
All right.
So
good enough.
And thanks for joining us today.
Yep. Excellent.
All right. Take care.
All right. See you guys.